First accident, penicillin. In 1928, a Scottish scientist named Alexander Fleming was working at St. Mary's Hospital in London. He specialized in studying bacteria, particularly harmful types that caused infections in humans. At the time, bacterial infections were one of the leading causes of death. Even a small cut could turn deadly if it became infected. Fleming was known for being careful, but also somewhat messy in his laboratory habits. One day, before leaving for a short vacation, he left several petri dishes on his workbench. These dishes contained colonies of bacteria that he had been studying. When he returned, something unusual had happened. One of the petri dishes had been contaminated by mold. Normally, this would be considered a failed experiment, something to throw away immediately. But Fleming noticed something strange that caught his attention. The bacteria surrounding the mold were gone. They had been destroyed, while bacteria farther away continued to grow normally. This created a clear zone around the mold where no bacteria could survive. Instead of ignoring this accident, Fleming became curious. He carefully examined the mold and identified it as belonging to the penicillium genus. He then began to study the substance it produced. He discovered that this mold released a chemical capable of killing harmful bacteria. He named this substance penicillin. At first, the importance of this discovery was not fully understood. Fleming himself struggled to turn it into a practical medicine. It was unstable and difficult to produce in large quantities. However, years later, scientists like Howard Florey and Ernst Chain developed methods for mass-producing penicillin. During World War II, penicillin was used widely to treat wounded soldiers. For the first time in history, infections that once meant certain death could now be cured. Millions of lives were saved. This single accident marked the beginning of modern antibiotics and completely transformed medicine. And it all started because one scientist chose not to throw away a contaminated petri dish.
Second accident, X-rays. In 1895, a German physicist named Wilhelm Röntgen was conducting experiments in his laboratory. He was studying cathode rays, a type of energy that travels through vacuum tubes. These experiments were common among scientists at the time, but what Röntgen discovered was completely unexpected. He was working in a dark room with a covered glass tube to block visible light. During one experiment, he noticed something unusual. A fluorescent screen placed several feet away began to glow. This didn't make sense. The tube was covered, so no visible light should have escaped. Yet somehow, something invisible was traveling through the space and hitting the screen. Röntgen realized he had discovered a new type of radiation. Because he didn't know what it was, he called it X-rays, using X to represent something unknown. Curious to understand more, he began testing how these rays interacted with different materials. He placed books, wood, and even metal objects between the tube and the screen. The rays passed through many of them. Then he tried something extraordinary. He placed his hand in front of the rays. On the screen, he could see the outline of his bones. For the first time in human history, someone had seen inside a living human body without surgery. This discovery quickly spread across the scientific world. Within weeks, other scientists began repeating his experiments. Within months, doctors started using X-rays in hospitals. Before this, diagnosing internal injuries was extremely difficult. Doctors had to rely on guesswork or perform risky surgeries. Now they could see broken bones, foreign objects, and internal damage clearly. X-rays revolutionized medicine. They became essential in diagnosing injuries, detecting diseases, and guiding medical procedures. Today, X-ray technology is still widely used around the world, and it all began with a strange glow in a dark laboratory, something that wasn't supposed to happen. Röntgen didn't ignore it, he investigated it, and that curiosity changed medicine forever.
Third accident, microwave oven. In 1945, an American engineer named Percy Spencer was working on radar technology during World War II. He was employed by Raytheon, a company that developed military equipment, and his main focus was improving magnetrons, devices that generate microwave radiation used in radar systems. One day, while standing near an active radar set, Spencer noticed something unusual. The chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. At first, this might not seem very important, but Spencer was curious. The room wasn't particularly hot, and the chocolate hadn't been near any fire or heat source. Something else had caused it to melt. Instead of ignoring the incident, he decided to investigate. He conducted a simple experiment. He placed a handful of popcorn kernels near the magnetron. After a short time, the kernels began to pop. This confirmed his suspicion. The microwaves were heating the food. To test further, he tried another experiment with an egg. As the microwaves heated it, pressure built up inside the egg until it suddenly exploded. This demonstrated that microwave energy could rapidly heat food from the inside. Spencer realized that this accidental observation could lead to something much bigger. Soon after, he worked with engineers to design the first microwave oven. The early versions were large, heavy, and expensive. They were mainly used in restaurants and industrial kitchens. However, over time, improvements in technology made them smaller, safer, and more affordable. By the 1960s and 1970s, microwave ovens began appearing in homes. They completely changed the way people cook. Food that once took hours to prepare could now be heated in minutes. Leftovers could be reheated instantly. Busy lifestyles became easier to manage. Today, microwave ovens are one of the most common kitchen appliances in the world. And all of this began with a simple accident: a melted chocolate bar in an engineer's pocket. Spencer didn't ignore the unexpected. He paid attention, asked questions, and tested his ideas. And in doing so, he transformed everyday life for millions of people.
Fourth accident: Coca-Cola. In 1886, an American pharmacist named John Stith Pemberton was trying to create a medicinal drink. At the time, many pharmacists experimented with different mixtures to produce tonics that could help with common problems such as headaches, fatigue, and stress. Pemberton was working in Atlanta, and his goal was to create something that could be both beneficial and appealing to customers. He developed a syrup made from a combination of ingredients, including plant extracts and flavoring agents. Originally, this syrup was intended to be mixed with plain water and sold as a health drink. However, something unexpected happened. At some point, instead of mixing the syrup with regular water, it was combined with carbonated water, possibly by accident at a soda fountain. The result was completely different. The drink became fizzy, refreshing, and much more enjoyable. Customers preferred this new version. Instead of being treated as medicine, it quickly became popular as a soft drink. Recognizing this, the product was rebranded and marketed as Coca-Cola. In the beginning, it was sold in small quantities at local soda fountains, but demand continued to grow. Over time, the formula remained mostly the same, while the branding and distribution expanded rapidly. By the early 20th century, Coca-Cola had become one of the most recognizable drinks in the United States. Later, it spread worldwide. Today, Coca-Cola is one of the most famous brands on the planet, consumed in almost every country. What makes this story remarkable is that it was never originally meant to be a global beverage. It started as a simple medical experiment. The transformation happened because of an unexpected change in how it was prepared. If that one small accident had not occurred, Coca-Cola might have remained just another forgotten medicine. Instead, it became a global symbol of modern consumer culture.
Fifth accident: potato chips. In 1853, a chef named George Crumb was working at a restaurant in Saratoga Springs, New York. The restaurant was popular among wealthy customers, and Crumb was known for his cooking skills. One day, a customer ordered fried potatoes. When the dish was served, the customer was not satisfied. He complained that the potatoes were too thick. Crumb prepared a new batch, slicing the potatoes thinner. But the customer still complained. This happened more than once. Eventually, Crumb became frustrated. Instead of trying to satisfy the customer in the usual way, he decided to do something different. He sliced the potatoes extremely thin as possible, and fried them until they became very crispy. He also added extra salt. His intention was not to improve the dish, but to prove a point. He expected the customer to reject them again. However, the opposite happened. The customer loved them. The thin, crispy potatoes were unlike anything that had been served before. Other customers became interested, and soon the dish gained popularity. These became known as potato chips. At first, they were only served in restaurants, but their popularity continued to grow. Over time, they began to be packaged and sold in larger quantities. Eventually, potato chips became one of the most popular snack foods in the world. Today, they are produced on a massive scale and sold in countless flavors and styles. What started as a moment of frustration turned into a global food industry. This accident was not the result of scientific research or careful planning. It came from a simple human reaction, frustration, followed by an unexpected outcome. If the customer had been satisfied from the beginning, potato chips might never have been created. Instead, a small mistake led to a completely new product that people around the world continue to enjoy every day.